The game starts off with Karo Khan defense. He plays the classical system. I take the pawn, knight takes, and bishop f5. Bishop g6, h4. A small background of this game: this was the first ever ChessBase India Chess Club session that was held in Phoenix Market City in Kurla, Mumbai. So many people came here, and I decided to play a few games. So I played a few games here, and many of them were nice opponents. They gave me quick wins. Then suddenly this boy comes out of nowhere. His name, which I got to know after the game, was Arvind Iyer, and he was 1700 rated FIDE 1731. But not just that, he's actually gaining a lot of rating recently, and he's a very, very strong youngster. I think he'll be very strong player soon. So you can see that his moves have been pretty decent from the opening perspective. He's played the classical system in Karo Khan. However, black has got a very comfortable position out of the opening. I've broken on c5, bishop takes c5. I have kept the king in the center still because I do not know where to castle yet. Maybe long, maybe short. Because the moment I castle, he wants to go g4. He took on c5. Now I had a choice between the knight and the queen, but I took it with the queen. And you can see the atmosphere there, all the people gathering around to see the game. It feels really nice after 2 years of pandemic to have so many people around you and to play chess. Now I could have exchanged the queens, but I decided to keep the queens on the board because now I have pressure down on the a2 pawn. He played the natural king b1, and I thought now is a good time to castle because I want to get my rooks in the center with rook d8 and rook c8. And of course, being a good player, he goes for the attack with g4. I went rook fd8, putting pressure here. The g5 move is still not possible. He went queen f4, and here I was a little bit confused as to what to do. So you can see me trying really hard, and then finally, after quite some thought, I came up with this idea that I should push my e-pawn down the board. Now, I was expecting him to move his queen back, and I got my bottle, drank my water, and suddenly he played queen f5, and I was a bit surprised. I was like, oh my god, my idea of e4 now doesn't work because the queen would hang. I thought and thought, and I think I came up with a very good idea. Maybe you can also think a bit and try to decide, because this is a critical moment. If white gets in g5, I am completely roasted. And so this next move was a nice one. I played queen a4, and now g4 is hanging. At the same time, if he goes g5, which is the most natural move, then I have a small idea prepared. He did go g5 here, and now my idea was not to take the pawn and open my king, but rather to go queen e4 here, check, so that he must exchange the queens. He was also a bit surprised by this move, it seems, because otherwise, I mean, he has to take the queen. What else? The queen is hanging there. So he took on e4, I took back, and now if you notice, I was banking upon the fact that I can take on f2, but this position was already becoming dangerous because he can take gh6 and sacrifice an exchange. He went rook g1. Now, a safe Sagar would have taken on g5 twice, perhaps, and then gone f6. And I think the position is slightly better for black, but here comes the danger. Sagar, who's dangerous for himself. I took the pawn on f2, attacking his rook, and he went, he went rook d5 now. The point is, now I got really worried. This was the moment where I thought the most, because firstly, gh6 is threatened. I don't know why I didn't capture on g5, which was the best move in the position. You can see him staring at me a little. Crowd gather around. They were understanding that something is going wrong here. I also wanted to play knight h3 to g5, but then he would go rook d1 and pin my knight there. So clearly a bit worried at this point. I was trying to find ways to survive. I pushed the pawn to e4, and Arvind very calmly, here thought for a bit and decided to place knight to h4. Very strong move, the best move in the position. Now once again, if now taking here is pointless because rook comes and puts pressure here. So my move e4 has opened up this rank. My idea was knight h3 here. He came rook d1, attacking my knight on d7. So what was my plan? Because I can't move my knight, my rook would hang. Well, my plan was the following, and I decided that I will take the pawn. Now I was expecting him to go to f5 here when I had planned knight f4 as a move, but he went knight g2, stopping this. And now this was a position which I hadn't much thought of. I thought I'm now gone, I'm losing, but notice I already have couple of pawns for a piece, and my clump of pawns here looks very dangerous. And so I was really proud of this next move, f5. I think this move saved me in the end, because now he cannot take this, my knight will simply come out. So oops, so he must take here on d7 and take my piece. So he started thinking, because this was a move that he hadn't expected. This, and Amruta comes there asking me for a clock. This game actually I thought would take like 10 minutes, but it was already going on for quite some time. And it was, the chess club was supposed to last till 7. It was already 7:12 by that point. Okay, but the game was so interesting, and Arvind now took the knight. I took back, he took back. And this was my next point, playing my pawn to f5. I pushed it to f4. My idea is now to play f3. So Arvind brought his knight to d4. Good move by him. He was making all the strong moves in the position. Next up, now I decided to bring my rook in the center of the board, because well, I have only 2 pieces and I need to push. If I push f3, his knight sits on e3. So I brought my rook to e8. And here Arvind decided to go to f5. Now you see, he is launching an attack on his own on g7. I should have played the move rook e5, which would have kind of nullified the attack, because then his knight has to take on g7 and I can already start thinking about pushing my pawn. But instead I thought it's not so dangerous that he take my pawn on g7. I decided to queen my pawn, but this is too slow. And here Arvind now has a winning position. So my move e3 is a big mistake. But when you're playing over the board with no bar, nothing, you do not know what move is a mistake, what is not. Everything looks the same. Rook takes g7, good move by him. Now I can't go to f8 because he will play h6, h7 and queen the pawn. So I have to go to h8. So I played my king to h8 here. And now a very good idea for him would have been to take the pawn on b7, and if I went e2 to block with knight e1. Later, if my pawn did go to g4, then knight h4, knight g6, h6 and rook g7 is a mating idea. But he played the move h6. It gave me a small chance. His idea was that he wants to go knight d6 and knight f7 mate. But this doesn't work. And I played my rook to e6. This is a good move. White is still doing okay, but now he had to move his rook away. He decided here to make a move that was not the best. He went knight e1, and here I spotted my chance. I was like, wow, this is an opportunity that I shouldn't miss, and just tried to calculate the last few variations, that everything is okay. Already the clock was in place, right? So 3 minutes each was the time. So by now we both had to start moving quickly. I took this pawn. Now if he takes my rook, Then after king takes g7, my three pawns are super strong, so he cannot allow that. He decided to play his rook to f7. Now my rook is hanging, and I had a choice between going to g6 or e6. Both look pretty decent. The clock already was ticking down. I have roughly around 2 minutes. He has 1 minute 56 seconds on the clock. It was so nice to get back into this tournament kind of feel. You can see I was thinking like as if this is a tournament game, and surely, yeah, it is, because the opponent is strong. You have nice pieces there, nice table and chair, which the Phoenix Market City have been so kind to provide. And you get this wonderful feel at the ChessBase India Chess Club to play chess. He went 97, but now I saw, wow, I have an opportunity here. He played 97 to move my rook away. And this is where I said, okay, well, let's move our rook to d6. It's a good move. I want to enter now and give a check and win this knight. So Arvind getting a bit nervous there because of less time. He put his knight on f3. If somehow he can coordinate his forces here to checkmate me, then it's the only chance, because now after g4 and all my pieces are getting, pawns are getting really strong. Thought for a bit, and I pushed my pawn to e2. He got his king up, and in came the move g4. Here rook f8 was an important move, but he went knight e1, which was a mistake. He could have drawn by giving some checks or going to g8 and picking up my pawn. But now after knight e1, this was the final mistake. I got my rook to d1 and I knew that I was winning, because now his rook and knight cannot checkmate my king. I'm threatening his knight. If his knight moves, my pawn will queen. And this game of a piece versus the pawns ended up in the pawn's favor. Yeah, you can see Arvind knows that this is not going his way. He went knight d3, and I took, if now king takes, then e1 queen, and so he resigned. It was a great game. Some small applause there. That felt nice. And then people started analyzing. This was so nice. Here's the boy who's asking me, when did you see this move f5? Did you see it from a distance? If you like this video and like the environment, do come to Phoenix Market City in Mumbai, Kurla, 5 to 7 p.m. every Saturday. We have the ChessBase India Chess Club. It's also happening. Tomorrow is a Saturday, so please do think about visiting. You get to play chess over the board, and it's completely free for all.
Queen a6 knight g3, queen a6 g5.